Welcome back once again to the Imaginary Gallery. It is TJ, your host. Tonight will be a few tidbits taken from the Jackson MacKenzie book, Psychopath Free, which we can expand on to the other cluster B behaviors as well. The part I chose to share is putting you on the defensive, which you could also call this baiting, which I've covered in other videos. But Mr. MacKenzie says that if you're dealing with one of these types of creatures, it is a given that they will make unfounded accusations about you at some point, especially if you're starting to put together the red flags in this monster's behavior. These insults have a very specific purpose: to put you on the defensive. Now, why on earth would anyone want to do such a thing? Well, Jackson tells us it's more simple than you might think. He says that people who defend themselves seem guilty by default. Whether or not they're guilty, it's not important. Once they start to defend themselves, opinions and assumptions are made from others who are watching. Is this unfair? Well, of course. But that's how people often react. He tells us that we've seen lives destroyed because of this type of thing, such as a man who's falsely accused of rape. He'll be continuously thought of as a rapist, even if it later comes out that he's not guilty of it. Truth doesn't matter. No one trusts him anymore. So this psychopathic monster will say all sorts of ridiculous things, and you find yourself suddenly defending yourself from accusations you've never even dreamed of. How could you not? Your name's being smeared, if not to others, then to the partner who supposedly loves you. So you get caught up in trying to prove them wrong, and that's where the calculated self-destruction begins. This creature can sit back, relax, and enjoy the show, and calmly point out to the hysterical victim and say, "Geez, that poor crazy person." Essentially, they provoke your anger and then calmly use it to prove their own point. You may try to expose these lies. You may say, "She's the liar. Here's the proof. She's the liar. She cheated. I didn't." Well, guess what? Nobody cares about the proof. They just see you screaming and pointing and yelling, and you're trying to defend yourself. You seem like you're guilty. The most important thing to remember is defending yourself will only make things worse. Sometimes less is more. And this is one of those times you think you have the perfect response to the ridiculous defamation? Yes, this creature is counting on that. In fact, they've carefully crafted their insults to make sure of it. That's nice to know. They attack the things you value the most, because those are the things in life that you will defend most passionately. Sick. And make no mistake, it's intentional. Jackson tells us that the easiest way for them to suck you in is to accuse you of doing the things that they themselves did or are doing. It's almost too easy for you to point out the hypocrisy. That's the point. Yes, it's too easy because it's a trap. If you have a perfect retort to their garbage, there's a reason for that. Do not fall for it. They want you on the defensive, trying to prove yourself to everyone. Once you've taken the bait, their job is done. And see, that's sick because in my own personal experience, I can think of a few of these people that would send me, let's say, text messages that would make a certain claim and say a certain thing, and I'd read those and think, oh my God. I would think of like contradiction after contradiction where they're condemning something about me when they've done something twice as horrible, and I would take the bait. I'd like grab that phone, oh, how dare you, da da da, and that's exactly what they're looking for. This was just on the phone, but they seem to gain supply by doing such things, knowing that whatever they're saying is retarded, but acting as if it's real just to see you attack it back with the facts. The second part of this lesson is very important to learn because I learned it through experience, and I've also learned how it's covered up through experience, but it's boredom. We're talking about you now. If you have a bad day, sometimes you just need to be on your own to recharge your own batteries and figure things out. Maybe you like to spend your alone time to create, cook, imagine, meditate, write, paint, or just dream. Maybe you just want a long, well-deserved nap. Jackson's point is whether you're an introvert or extrovert, occasional quiet time seems to be a universal human need. But this does not apply to the cluster B fool. Alone time may be one of the few things that actually truly agitates these people, who are otherwise seamlessly cool and calm. You see, without having a conscience, there's not very much to think about on your own. And without people around spoon-feeding adoration and attention, boredom can set in very quickly. The creatures are always bored. They are constantly seeking out stimuli to distract themselves from this nagging condition. They cannot tolerate being on their own for any extended period of time. You see, healthy human beings learn to enjoy this quiet time and introspection. This is how we discover some of the most important things about ourselves. Cluster B creatures, on the other hand, they've got nothing to discover. They spend their free time mirroring others and copying desirable traits. Now, with real people, empathy allows us to experience imagination and creativity, two of the most wonderful human qualities that psychopaths and monsters can only mimic. In various forums devoted to self-proclaimed sociopaths, there are frequent discussions about how to cope with the overwhelming boredom that consumes their daily life. And he says that it's not surprisingly, but most of the answers have to do with sex, alcohol, drugs, and of course, manipulating others. Now, relationships provide these creatures with the most stable and reliable form of boredom, because once they have you hooked, they can reach out to you at any time for compliments, attention, and praise. And once they get their other targets, they're safe to start emotionally abusing you, which is far more interesting than pretending to love you. Watching you scurry around like a rat in a maze provides them with an entertaining distraction from their otherwise boring and dull life. He tells us the idealization phase is merely a byproduct of this boredom, a necessary step in grooming you so that they can abuse you for as long as possible. Now, he tells us that at times in this relationship, you may find yourself exhausted because it seems you never had any time alone after the honeymoon period. It was always spending time with them as their friends, from one busy plan to the next. Psychopaths / sociopaths / cluster B have a tendency to behave like innocent children, surrounding themselves with material and parental types who constantly want to be there for them, often support and providing for them at every turn. These people are kept around to alleviate the creature's boredom. The more targets, the better. At first, the psychopath might have complained about them to you, but after you've locked into the relationship, the psychopath will oscillate between choosing you and choosing others in order to keep everyone on their toes. No matter who they choose for the day, one thing is certain: they will not spend time on their own. It's far better to provoke hurt feelings in you and watch your reactions than to simply sit alone in a corner of the room for an hour. Essentially, the most hurtful boredom comes from when it seems they suddenly have lost all interest in you. Everything you do just seems to bore them. As you struggle to regain their attention, you find that the qualities they once admired about you have apparently become glaring faults. Nothing you can do seems to bring back that intense fake focus that they once aimed at you, and nothing that you can do seems to bring it back. Even as they begin treating you terribly, a part of you may wish that you could still win back your place as the boredom relief number one. This is completely normal, because once you realize that this idealization phase is gone forever, the next best option is to frantically ensure that you at least remain one of their many sources of entertainment. Yes, this is how warped our standards have become. Well, no longer.
I am the Narcopath. I'm here to give you a few more confessions. I know when we broke up it was so hard for you. Tell me about it. It's hard for all of them. And believe me, you're not the only one. Not by a million.
I am the queen of evil. Of course, you didn't know that when we met, and you probably wonder why you're having such a hard time getting over me, because after all, you knew what I did. You knew it was rotten to sleep with your brother and your mother and your father, but you still kept coming back, so I figured, well, if he's going to put up with that, then he deserves whatever else I dish out on him. That's just a secret, of course, I would never have told you back then, but
It just happened with your mother. I couldn't help it. And it just happened with your brother. And it just, I couldn't help it. Do you blame me? I am gorgeous.
I fit myself right into your life. And Celine Dion was one of your things I jotted down in my brain. And
Your viewpoint on Hillary Clinton? Well, I said, oh, well, I agree with that, even though I can't stand her. She ruined my life.
I was the perfect gentlewoman. I just listened and went along with everything. In addition to the love bombing, is that what you all call it, when I cleaned your house for you, took care of all those things you never asked for. Well, all of these things, it told you just how different I am from anyone and everyone you've ever dated.
I took anything and everything you did that you loved, that you liked, and I just made sure I had some kind of interest in it. Of course, it was a superficial interest, but I was so hot in your bedroom, you didn't even pay attention to notice.
I could tell some of the times you were embarrassed about some of your little quirks, and every single time I found something sweet about it, and you fell for it. So, one of the reasons why it hurts you so much now that I discarded you for bigger and better things is that you really thought you found somebody who was made for you. Well, I was, temporarily, but now I'm made for somebody else. In fact, I can't even remember all the stuff now that we used to do because I'm somebody else now. I'm somebody else's lover. They'll end up being discarded too, just like you, so don't feel too bad. They're not getting anything you weren't. In fact, I've cheated on this one more than you, and this one is so stupid.
Another reason you still can't get over me is because I conditioned you well. Remember when we had one of those first arguments and you were really upset? But I knew I did my job in the bedroom well enough that it would get you coming back from work because you wouldn't give up on that. So, as predicted, you wanted to work it out, and I said the right thing, I did the right thing, and we were back doing it again. So I conditioned you well that I could be turned around. If I did something wrong or bad, I built up this confidence level between you and me, plus I fit into your schedule, and I befriended your mother and father. More than you wanted, but that came later. Anyway, I'm just an expert at what I do because it's all I do, and I'm doing it now, just not with you. But should the situation arise, I might contact you out of the blue and just tell you how I miss you. That's one of the reasons why I never told you the things I'm telling you now. Because if you knew the things I'm telling you now, chances are you'd be saying good riddance to me, and I can't have that because I might need you for something. You never know when I might need you again.